Hello wonderful people, it is Genevieve, and in this video we are going to draw a really simple, really cool, super easy mandala in the shape of a heart in Procreate using some really neat features. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is to create a new canvas, and the size is absolutely up to you. This is what I'm using, and it's going to allow you, if that's what you're using as well, to just print out your mandala on a regular sheet of paper, so like 8.5 by 11 inches. And I'm using the studio brush from Procreate that comes in the inking panel. And I recommend that you increase the streamline option a little bit. So in the stroke path menu, increasing it somewhere around 75% is going to really help you have smoother curves that just look a little bit more neat and clean. And with that ready, we're going to create a new layer. So the first layer of the project. This one you're going to want to name it to shape or heart or something like that you can recognize later. We're not going to have a lot of layers, so don't worry too much about it. And we're going to use the symmetry feature. So go ahead and in the wrench icon menu, activate drawing guide, which is under canvas, and then edit drawing guide. Select symmetry, and it's going to be like mirror or reflective, depending on the language that you're using. And you're going to want to put a vertical line in the middle, kind of in the middle of your canvas. And you can set the thickness, opacity, and color of your line to your heart's desire. No pun intended, because that's really just for your own sake. It doesn't affect the final product. You're then going to activate Drawing Assist on your shape layer. So just tap on the layer and then in the menu, select Drawing Assist. And with that, you're going to see that everything you draw on one side is going to automatically be recreated on the other side, which is super helpful when you're trying to draw a heart, which is exactly what you're going to do in this next step. So take all the time you need, because this is pretty much the most important and difficult step of all the tutorial, is to get the basic shape just right. When you do have a heart shape that you like, you are going to go back to your layers and duplicate it. And you're going to select the bottom one, and you're going to pick the purest white you can. And you're going to hide the background color and hide the top shape layer. And all you want at this stage, I know it might be a bit confusing, but bear with me, is to fill in the outside color or the outline color with white, and then fill in the heart shape as well. And you might see that, just like me, you have a little bit of issues, and that's probably because one part of your heart was not connected. So make sure that all the little ends connect together, and then you're going to be able to fill in your shape. At this point, go back and reactivate your background color and your top layer, which you're now going to rename to outlines. So at this stage, you should have the shape layer, which is fully white, and then the outlines layer. You're going to create another layer between the outline layer and the shape layer. You're going to apply it as a clipping mask, which basically what it means is everything you're going to draw on this new layer, which you're going to rename to Mandala, by the way, is going to stay within the heart shape. So that's super helpful. You're then going to go select a black color and the brush that you've been using at first, and we're going to edit this drawing guide a little bit. So going back in the edit drawing guide menu, this time you're going to select radial, and you might want to move the center somewhere else in your heart. I like to put it in one of the kind of top parts, and you might want to rotate it a little bit. And what this does is it kind of changes the symmetry a little bit. So instead of having something that is reflected like a mirror, you're actually going to have something that is reflected like a pie or a pizza. And that's kind of what we need for a mandala. So you're going to start by zooming in to your center point of your symmetry. And you can see here, if you draw something in one of the little triangles, it kind of is recreated in all the other triangles. So that's a super cool way of definitely cutting down the time of drawing a mandala, because you have to draw everything once instead of 8 times. So definitely saving a whole lot of time. And this video is kind of the halfway point between a tutorial and just a draw with me video. And what I mean by that is I really recommend that you don't draw exactly what I'm drawing, because the purpose of this is just to show you a bunch of different shapes that you can use in your mandala. When you draw a mandala, there are a bunch of different types of forms and curves that you can use. And usually you try to stick to 2 or 3 of those, otherwise your mandala looks all over the place. And as you're going to see fairly soon, my mandala is going to look all over the place because I'm just trying to show you as many of those traditional shapes as possible. So that's kind of why I'm saying, don't exactly draw what I'm drawing, just take inspiration into it and draw your own thing. And mandalas are really fairly easy to draw, especially when you have symmetry, because you're just doodling basically, you're just filling in the space. And that's kind of the biggest challenge. It's not actually the drawing part that is hard, it's to fill the space. So the first thing you want to do when starting is to find a way to break up your space a little bit. And what I like to do is to just start by drawing a very small circle or even a full-on dot in the center of my symmetry. And then I draw a few kind of petals almost around it. So kind of like the center of my mandala is a flower. And that helps give a little bit of direction, and it kind of gives a base to start with and to build on. Because otherwise you just get this anxious white page syndrome, or whatever it's called in English, I'm not sure. And that's kind of the hardest part, honestly, when you draw a mandala, is to get over that fear of, oh wow, there's so much blank space, what do I do about it? So you're gonna see here so many different shapes that you can use and mix and match, and the only challenge, the only goal is to use them to fill in the space. And you also want to play and vary the intensity, or the thickness I should say, of the different strokes. And that's going to give a lot of life to your mandala, because if you just have the same thickness of the strokes throughout, it's going to be a bit confusing in the sense that it's all going to be the same, and the eye, when it's all the same, the eye doesn't know where to look. So adding some different thickness in the strokes, adding some really thin ones, some super thick ones, some fully black areas, some fully white areas, varying the size of the elements, is really going to help your mandala feel more interesting, more alive, and just interesting to look at, as opposed to just overwhelming, basically. And the further you get in your process, the bigger the space you're gonna have to fill. And whenever you end up in the big space and you feel that fear again of oh wow, I have so much space to fill, start by breaking it up. So pick one of the shapes that you already use. Either it's those U-little shapes, circles, some flower petals like the triad that I'm drawing here, some of those more pointy petals even, or just little dots, and break up your space. Add one element that's going to help make the space feel a bit smaller, and then everything's going to be easier from there. So you can see here I was exactly in that situation. I had a lot of white space to fill, and I just went in and drew some pointy petals, and now everything was way easier. It broke down the space into more manageable pieces, and then I was able to kind of see how to fill those pieces in. So basically, anytime you're wondering what to do, just break up the space. That's all. And a really cool way to break up the space is by just adding little lines. And you want to make sure that they're fairly equal. So I always recommend, whenever you're filling in a space, start by breaking it up in two, and then the halves you break in two as well, and then the quarters that create you break in two. So instead of just going in and filling it in with a bunch of individual little lines, starting from one side and then going to the other, you just kind of break in a half, and then the halves you break in half, and then the halves you break in half. So that way you make sure that you do maintain fairly similar sizes in your space. So hopefully that made sense. If not, don't worry about it. You can just look at the example and figure it out. Honestly, I'm not this voiceover is not even that essential. I'm just hanging out with you. You can even mute me and just look at the video if that's more of your thing. So anyway, another cool thing to keep in mind is, the furthest you get out from the center, so the closest to the edges, the more space you can leave. And by space, I mean both just white space and also just fully black space. So you can have bigger shapes that are not as filled in as much as in the center if you are closer to the outside. So it doesn't always have to be the same amount of details all throughout your mandala. You can have more simple parts and more intricate parts. So that's something you can play with as well. You know, you have so many tools in your toolbox, and this should not be something stressful or difficult. This should be turning your brain off and just doodling. Remember when you were a kid? I don't know if that's just me, probably not. Well, in fact, that is not just me, I know. But you know, when you're in class and the class might be a bit boring, you kind of doodle in your notebook. Well, that's exactly what it is. Or like when you're on the phone, especially when you like land phone, home phones that you cannot necessarily walk around with, and you were stuck because they were on a cord. You know, you had this little piece of paper, and while the other person was talking, you could not just walk around. You were stuck there, and you would just, at least I was just kind of scribbling whatever on this little piece of paper just to fill in the white space. And so if you're able to get your brain into the same state of mind, that can be listening to music or podcast, you're gonna get a great mandala, because you want to really disconnect your head and not overthink it. Actually, overthinking it is probably the worst thing you can do in this case. This mandala is a way to turn your brain off. That's a great activity to like almost meditate. You're just trying to add little shapes to fill in the space and make sure everything is balanced. It's all about finding balance. We all need more balance in life, don't we? So a great way to start is by just drawing mandalas. There we go. Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about this technique. And I mean, I say technique, but really it's just mandalas. There are no limits. You can really draw whatever, and you can create an infinite number of mandalas and then just have forever unlimited fun, you know? And you can even print them out. I'm going to show you how to do it at the end of the tutorial. You can even print them out at home and then grab out your coloring pencil and color them, which is a whole other meditative activity within itself, you know? A few years ago, that was so popular. There were like these adult coloring books. I mean, they're still fairly popular, but I feel like 2 years ago, that was the biggest thing ever. And yeah, I mean, those coloring books would sell for what, 20, 30, 40 bucks? No, you can do it yourself. It's even more fun. You have the like satisfaction of drawing the actual thing you're gonna then color. Isn't that cool? And it doesn't take that long at all. And even if it did take a long time, if you want to spend a long time, you could, and that's fine, because that's just fun. There's no pressure there. And I mean, you could even print that out in a massive scale, or you could use a projector to project it on your wall at home and then kind of paint it on your wall. That would look really good in the bedroom or something like that. So many things you can do with your mandala that look really cool, or if you just want to do it for fun, that's fine as well. And if you do want to print it out, just go in your wrench icon menu, select share, and then you can export either in JPEG or PDF or whatever you know is easiest for your printing setup. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, because it really does help the channel, and it also helps me know if you want more videos just like this one. Speaking of which, make sure you don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because I put out new videos every single week. And with that said, I will see you soon.